happens when you invest your life savings in a home and the building collapses? Overnight, you're pushed into deep uncertainty and no place to stay. Now, the collapse of 5 flats in Tower D at Chintels Paradiso in Gurugram, which led to 2 deaths and subsequent declaration of 4 more towers as unfit, has left 400 plus residents staring at a shaky future. Now, add to that NBCC, a public sector company which is supposedly a blue chip and a Navratna. In its project, NBCC Green View Apartments, families have been asked to vacate their homes. This project was found to be structurally unsound last year, and after the loss of 2 lives in Chintels Paradiso, Haryana authorities woke up to what could happen to residents of NBCC Green Views who are still living there and the urgent need to demolish the entire project, declaring it unsafe for habitation. Today on the Property Show, as homeowners of these 2 projects stare at an uncertain future, we ask, what were the lapses that led to these disasters, and how do we ensure going forward nothing like this ever happens again? Joining me on the show, Aditya Parolia from PSP Legal. He's also an advocate at the Supreme Court. We also have with us Nimish Gupta, former MD of RICS India. Aditya, the first question is, the building codes are very stringent, and so are the state or the local bylaws. Yet there is a building which collapsed, 5 floors collapsed, and there is another one which has been declared unfit. What happened? I mean, what are the gaps that the home buyers are claiming which led to such a horrific collapse, because you are in touch with them?
See, Nishiji, what has happened is certainly tragic and unfortunate, and what I can call this is an institutional failure. Now, what are the gaps? All laws are in place, but on ground, whether they are being complied or not is another question. But as per what is missing from the current laws is there is no structural audit done by the DTCP or any other authority before giving these occupation certificates. Now, occupation certificates have become the beginning and end of these compliance checks. More so, there are no interim checks when the constructions are going on. So suppose 19 floors are made of a 25-story building, and then you find it out that something is wrong, then you are not going to demolish those 19 buildings. The builder is not going to do it. He just put some reinforcement pillars or he does some shoddy jobs. But DTCP is not aware of it. Home buyers are not aware of it. And there are serious code violations. The raw material which are being used, there are no checks and compliances or no declarations on it. Then on these OCs, there is no buffer period so that home buyers can put objections to these occupation certificates. And the last most important lacuna in the law is a term called partial occupancy. Now, partial occupancies are given very frequently in Gurugram, whereby in a 10-tower project, even if 2 towers are completed, they give you an OC for these 2 towers. And it is certified that it is ready for a habitation. But are these rest of the towers being complied on the same lines? What is happening? So institutional checks are missing from these laws before granting these OC.
So Nimish, my question is, as per the provisions, you have a qualified structural engineer who has to certify the quality of the building at the time of the occupancy certificate being issued. In this case, it was an engineer from IIT Delhi, another one from IIT Roorkee, who both have at least 20 years of experience. Building was certified in 2017. It was constructed under their supervision and to the specifications of National Building Code. So what really went missing? The declaration was fraudulent, or these engineers were not qualified?
IIT Delhi and IIT Roorkee, both are very reputed institutes. However, let's understand, they are never engaged for continuous supervision or intervention during the project. They provide certificates based on the structural analysis, design and drawings which are provided to them by the developer, and construction documentation which the developer would have carried out during the course of construction. It is provided to these institutes. Based on these, they will certify whether the building is structurally stable or not. Before we raise a question on IIT Delhi and Roorkee, there needs to be a process formalization, as Aditya himself pointed out, institutionalizing of a process which ensures that when a structural stability certificate is provided, is it provided before once someone has actually ensured that the construction has happened according to the drawings and design, and the material which has been used in the project has been up to mark, has been tested, has been quality tested for all the objects it is supposed to serve. So once that is done, you will possibly have an approach which will then not lay a question whether IITs are at fault or is there a fraudulent practice which is going on over here.
Are you also in agreement, Nimish, with what Aditya has said, that, we only have a check at the end of it? There is no check at all at the different levels. Now, we're talking about high rises. I know we can't go the Dubai way, where actually after every slab is put, there is a check by the local authorities, right? Competent authorities. In our case, do you think that's even possible? Because, we have now Chief Minister saying that we are now going to have structural engineers appointed by DTCP to go and check and then certify that it's ready for inhabitation. My question is, it's just another layer after layer, which developers say then leads to delays. So what's your viewpoint on that?
Currently, what we see over here, RERAs are authorized to regulate the construction practices in real estate industry. I have always been a huge advocate of construction regulatory body, which needs to come into place. So when you talk about these things happening, and you talked about three biggest gaps, and I believe the three biggest gaps in this case are implementation, inspection, and intent. All three of them were missing in these cases. And while Chintels Paradiso possibly would be one example of this, or maybe NBCC Green View as well, if you unwrap some of the buildings which are there in various other cities, not just in Gurugram or for that matter NCR, you will see that there is a huge dearth of a system which takes care of it. We need prevention. We are talking about only a reactionary mechanism. We need qualified engineers. We need a regulatory regime. We need standardized approach to contracts so that any kind of malpractice of undercoating a project and then trying to cut corners on quality, or for that matter processes, or for that matter even hoodwinking authorities, should not be allowed in the project.
Okay. Aditya, a lot of people are saying, or at least the news is reported, that the builders in Chintels Paradiso are claiming that there was a renovation work which was being done on the 6th floor, and that's what led to the collapse of the 5 floors. Do you really believe that was the case, or there have been terrible lapses in the quality of the construction per se, because 4 other towers have now also been deemed as structurally unfit?
That's a very unfortunate cover-up by these builders. I've personally spoken to the home buyers. They were informing the DTCP and the builder of construction labs for quite some time. In fact, why these 5 towers now are structurally lacking in the quality is because of a dispute between the subcontractor Bihana, which has come out, and the Chintels. The case was still pending, and Bihanas have initially constructed 7 floors. And when it was inspected by Chintels, it was found that the work was not done up to mark and the structure was very weak. Thereafter, Bihanas was removed and Chintels constructed remaining floors. So this is what buyers have told me. And since the time the delivery has happened, all first 7 floors have been causing one or the other problem. So saying that renovation work was going on, that's why there was a collapse, then it's much more a serious thing to consider. If just by renovation the entire building is on a collapse, think about an earthquake. We are in a high seismic zone. What will happen to these buildings if an earthquake comes? So how can one say that just renovation is happening?
You're saying, Aditya, that sounds unbelievable, and it is sounding a little unbelievable to everybody, but we don't know. I mean, the renovations do also lead sometimes to a little bit of a damage on a structure.
But these are recently delivered projects, Manisha.
These are
delivered in
projects.
2018, 2020.
And the residents had been raising concerns around the fact that cracks were developing and the construction quality was very poor. Nimish, I'm going to come to then now another big worry. So here was a case where Bayana builders, who were the contractors, handed over to Chintels because Chintels found that the quality of construction was not very good. Now there are these number of delayed, stuck projects in NCR. There's Amrapali, which is, my God, going to be taken over by NBCC, no other. And there's also, JP, which is going to restart their construction, or Suraksha will restart their construction after many, many years. what happens when these unfinished projects are exposed to weather changes? Don't they degrade when you restart these projects? Aren't you supposed to do a complete audit to make them safe?
So, Manisha, they'll face the problem once again because there is no construction regulatory piece in place which ensures that the construction quality, the approach, the design adequacy is taken care at every stage of the project. So once the baton is passed on, the person will pick up the project from where it is without establishing the facts on adequate safety measures, whether these were construction related safety or building safety. They will never be addressed at that point of time. And which is why you will see most of the projects which have been delayed, or if there is a change of hand in execution of those projects, will definitely face those problems in future.
Aditya, I'm going to come to you on a very pertinent point. Now, residents are upset. Union Minister of State and Gurugram Member of Parliament, Rao Inderjeet Singh, he said that, authorities will not let the guilty go by. But I'm just looking at the fact that, everybody in the Chintels case, right, has been, there's been a FIR filed against them. Ashok Solomon, Chintels chairman, the structure engineer, architect and contractor under all sections 304, 34, 120B of IPC. But go back to NBCC, right? Nothing. 2017, the project was handed over. 2018, the residents started complaining that the structures are unsafe and there are problems. Till date, they have not been given alternate accommodation. They have not been moved. They've just been asked vacate. But NBCC promised to give them rented accommodation. That has not come by. Nobody. There was a gentleman called A.K. Mittal who also faced some vigilance cases at that point, who's currently also the part of Unitech Homes Board, right? So I'm just wondering, where does the buck stop? Why is he not being brought back to be questioned on how can an entire project of 900 apartments be so poorly constructed? Aditya?
I absolutely agree with you. There should not be any discrimination here between a private builder or a PSU. It should be treated in the same manner. And more responsibility lies upon a public sector undertaking when you have undertaken a construction. Now, same NBCC is going to construct Amrapali. NBCC is there in JP, NBCC is there in Unitech. And when its own projects are not habitable, think about the repercussions which it is going to have. And as we have already discussed, the problem lies that NBCC subcontracts, does not do the work on their own, but are there regular checks at each and every interval? They are not there. Are the checks done by independent architects? No, they are not done. Raw material checks, they are not done. Now, whose responsibility it is? Why is NBCC not taking any onus upon them today? I don't know. I've spoken to NBCC buyers as well. They have been just asked to move away and shift. Now think about a home buyer who has invested their entire life saving. In Chintels, at least people are talking about compensation and refund, and the DTCP is taking so much interest. But this same vigor is lacking in the NBCC matter. And the question goes back to the authorities and the government why it is so.
In fact, I'm even more disappointed in the NBCC case. And, there are some reports, Nimish, which are suggesting that home buyers should now get a structural audit done. In high rises, home buyers can probably get CPATE checked in their own homes, quality of construction. They can't get or invest in getting a structural audit done. Is that even possible?
No, that's definitely not possible, Manisha. For simple reason, we would need, again, as I said, an approach which identifies qualified engineer to handle a specific job.
I think the point is that RERA is not staffed enough. Whether it's town and planning departments, they don't have enough staff, qualified staff to go and check. So there's going to be now a whole layer of bureaucracy which will be created, but I'm not really sure whether that will prevent anything. I think the onus lies with the developer to make sure that he gives an excellent product at the end of it, and incidents like Chintels Paradiso or NBCC do not recur again. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. When we return, we bring you face to face with India's newly minted unicorn, LiveSpace, which has helped over 2 lakh homeowners to design and decorate their home spaces.